about last week where he has played a little bit better. What a pass by Rondo.
That might be the dagger.
Why not? Why can't I be the MVP of the league? Why can't I be the best player in the league?
The Lakers repeat back-to-back titles. The LA Lakers, the 2010 NBA champions.
I don't know why I had the most random thought form out of thin air yesterday, but Paul George and Russell Westbrook will be one of the most forgotten NBA duos of the 2010s and maybe even further than that. You know, forgotten like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, which I actually liked for the time, by the way. It's just it came out right after Avengers, it's the only Spider-Man without a sequel. Actually, now that I think about it, that movie relates to PG and Westbrook duo in more than one way. Anyway, everything happened so fast in the Paul George OKC saga, and it seemed to end just as fast as it begun. Kinda like Gogeta's form in Fusion Reborn, except, well, we remember that. But check this out. Hear what I have to say about this. First off, think back. Paul George's arrival in OKC was about as random as they come. Hell, I believe I'm on tape saying there was no way or reason he'd even end up there. Well, I was wrong, but my reasoning really wasn't. If you can remember, when that trade initially went down, the majority of us threw a giant WTF at the Pacers front office. Like, out of all the deals you could have made, you got Victor Oladipo and Sabonis, who at the time were merely more than role players. True that a team rarely ever gets equal value in terms of a star player, but common opinion was that they could have definitely done better. A deal like that seemed like a far stretch, which is why it didn't seem like it could happen, which is why I was making the Listerine face the few times I heard Paul George to the Thunder proposed. But okay, there's one very random trade that didn't seem realistic. Nobody saw it coming. It wasn't something highly anticipated and expected like Anthony Davis to the Lakers. After that, think hard and remember that once upon a time, this deal became part of what was looked at as a trio. Yes, the Mellow Man saw his time in New York come to an end, being sent to, again, what seemed like a very random destination for him. Now here, it's important not to revise history. Melo has gone through an entire internet hate cycle since summer 2017, so it's easy to forget that before ever playing a game for the Thunder, nobody was saying he couldn't play basketball anymore yet. Did we think they were getting Nuggets Melo? No, hell no. They weren't even getting early Knicks Melo, but they were supposedly getting a guy that could still produce offensively, and on a team with two other star offensive players, well, that's why it was looked at like a big three on paper. Nobody knew how exactly the X's and O's would work, just that they had three big names, which was supposed to be a massive upgrade from the season before. Anyway, all of that to say, for one of the two short seasons Paul George was there, it wasn't exclusively looked at as the Paul George and Westbrook duo. You got that feeling much more in 2019 than you did the year before. So at this point, the Paul George deal was a sneak attack, and the first year was a poorly thought out trio. Let's be real though, it did not help matters that this came at a time when the Warriors had a death grip on the league. Those 3 years that KD was a Warrior really blend together. So as a result, there were never any real expectations that by adding PG, the Thunder would get very far. At best, we hoped they could make the conference finals just so that we could see Westbrook and KD in a playoff series, but again with no real expectations of the Thunder actually winning it. So if PG and Westbrook would have formed like last summer when every contending team was getting their duo on, it would have probably made some waves. In summer 17 when the Warriors were fresh off of a title with no clear end in sight, it was cool, but it also did exactly nothing to affect the state of parity in our expectations. Hell, if you even think back, CP3 joining the Rockets initially raised more questions than it did excitement, outside of Houston at least. However, they went on to prove how good they could be, so they likely won't be forgotten. The Thunder, on the other hand, never made it out of the first round with this pairing. Not like in a T-Mac kind of way where it's largely been forgotten or excused. No, in a devastating way actually. The type that produces memes that tend to live on for a very long time, if not forever. If it hadn't been for Lillard hitting the most soul-crushing, series-ending buzzer beater we'll likely ever get before waving them into the abyss, I'm convinced there wouldn't be proof that the two ever played together. And that was in a series people didn't fully expect the Blazers to win despite them being the higher seed. Before them, it was a crushing 5-game defeat at the hands of the Utah Jazz who didn't have home court advantage, in which, by the way, another meme was born. Whether it actually makes sense or not, anytime PG's playoff resume comes up on Twitter, a Joe Ingles name drop is soon to follow. So yeah, literally both of this duo's playoff runs ended in the first round with memes, giving a new meaning to the phrase meme team. By the way, the Jazz did not have home court advantage in 2018, but they did have an identical record to OKC with 48 wins. The next season, the Thunder won 49. Yeah, this duo never produced a 50-win campaign. I mean, 1 or 2 wins, who really cares, right? But still, when one thought of PG and Westbrook as a duo, they probably weren't thinking struggling to the 50-win mark. So regardless of why it happened, that's the way it'll be remembered. Speaking of recalling, we all knew who Westbrook's previous duo partner was. It was a player with an argument as being the best in the league. It was a player who theoretically fit better on the court with him, given that he could shoot from anywhere, score from anywhere. Simply put, it was a better player than Paul George, kind of by a lot. lot. So not only did this duo pairing happen right in the middle of a Warrior dynasty that featured KD, Westbrook's old duo partner, but it was easy to look at the Thunder and go, well, if Westbrook could not win with Kevin Durant, why would he win with Paul George? And especially at a time like this. It was just really easy to write them off as no more than a couple of exciting names for that reason. And the people who did that weren't technically wrong. Sure, PG did have a short-lived MVPG campaign in 2019 when he was at his healthiest, but even that came at a time when people who didn't just feel like playing devil's advocate knew good and well that Giannis was the MVP. And then his shoulder severely slowed that down anyways, and it says a lot that this stretch was probably the most memorable success of his time there. But if you're talking about the most memorable part of his time there in general, his free agency. Yeah, both chapters of it might be more memorable than anything that happened on the court in his time there, mostly because of how hilarious and weird they were. Part of the reason we thought the Pacers had settled in that trade was because he was viewed as a potential rental with only a year left on his deal. So when it came time to cross that bridge in summer 2018, especially after the embarrassing first round out, nobody outside of OKC even cared about extending his time there. The questions we were asking were more along the lines of, what number is he going to wear for the Lakers? And who's going to join him there? And that was especially true once the LeBron to LA rumors began heating up. Now, was LeBron, PG, and a bunch of younger fill-ins going to be able to hold a candle to the Warriors? Not likely, but it was still something we thought we would see and were excited to see. Couldn't blame us either. Watching him talk over his free agency plans with Dwayne Wade, mentioning how he'd always wanted to be home in LA, why would he do all that just to stay in Oklahoma of all places? He did all that just to stay in Oklahoma of all places. Unfinished business, he said. Well, he wasn't wrong. A first round out wasn't on the menu, so he stayed by virtue of a 4-year deal. We should have known something was wrong with that right off the bat, but how could we have expected what was to come? In all fairness, for 99.9% of all existing beings in the universe, that was a very, very bad shot. Just not for Damian Lillard. A 4-year deal was supposed to mean that this duo wouldn't split until it was clear they had no path forward to success, which is usually down the line after multiple humiliating failures. Instead, it came last summer, when out of the blue, he'd supposedly requested a trade to LA, the very same location he could have just outright signed with like we all knew he wanted to the year before. He knew he wanted to. He was so goddamn happy to be out of OKC in their airport video. Anyway, that Clippers trade was almost every bit as unexpected as the trade that sent him to OKC. We were actually waiting for confirmation at the time that Kawhi would re-ruin the league by signing with the Lakers, then boom, we wake up one morning and both of them are Clippers. That one spectacle was more exciting than almost anything that happened the entire time he was with the Thunder, except of course for the one time he took off on Utah and everybody crowned him MVP for the night. Man, people gotta stop doing that. But that one spectacle also came at a time when the league was being reborn and parity revived. So there was true optimism, if not expectation, that as part of this duo, Paul George would become a champion, almost the exact opposite of his arrival to the Thunder. And then on OKC side, they managed to salvage everything beautifully. The expectation was that, okay, they're blowing it up. Westbrook gone, Paul George gone. It's Oklahoma. What big name free agent is ever really gonna come to Oklahoma? Like, they couldn't even get Pau Gasol when Westbrook and Kevin Durant were there because he needed opera shows. So it really felt like that franchise was just gonna be put on the back burner for years. But then they got a lot of great young pieces and added Chris Paul, and then went on to do just as good, if not a little bit better than they were last season. Totally out of the blue. They're a legitimate playoff team. They're still a legitimate playoff team. We don't know how far they're gonna go this year. We don't know how anything is gonna happen this year. But you gotta remember that when Damian Lillard hit that shot, and then the trades happened, Lillard was pretty much credited with ending a franchise. But given that they're a legitimate problem in the playoffs as we speak, with young talent for the future, it feels like even OKC fans think they're better off with this team as opposed to where they were last year. A duo that really didn't ever seem like it was going anywhere, and not a whole lot of cap space. This looks like the better situation. So with PG contending for a championship on his end, and OKC A-OK for the future, that happening immediately after this duo, it feels like nobody misses it now, it feels like nobody's ever going to miss it, and it feels like no one's ever going to care about it, especially if OKC fans won't. Of course, they're always going to love Russell Westbrook, but as a basketball team, they're fine. So yeah, that's the PG and Westbrook duo, mirrored by off-court events, brutal losses, and a total lack of confidence that they would ever amount to more than a chew toy for Golden State in the playoffs. It was born out of random and unexpected events, it really produced nothing, and then died of random and unexpected events. Proof of this duo will barely exist outside of this video pondering its frail existence. And then PG might win a championship with another duo partner this very year, the very season after he left OKC, which would probably totally erase the memory of the 2 years that preceded it. This video is not not meant to be some cruel indictment on the duo because it's basketball, either you win or don't win, whatever. But I truly believe that in 5 or so years, we're gonna look back and be like, man, these two guys actually played together once? What happened? It'll be giving off the vibes of like Sean Kemp and Patrick Ewing playing for the Magic, except these two were in their prime. Very weird energy. So be sure to leave in the comment section what you remember most about the Paul George and Westbrook duo. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button, comment, and sub, and hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications every time a new one drops. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.